Welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving straight into a topic that's, well, it's a major headache for anyone trying to actually use Web3 today. Fragmentation.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping between chains, managing all these different wallets, hunting for the right gas token. It's just a mess.
It really is. And the mission for this deep dive, based on that detailed project report you shared, the one on Particle Network, is to really understand how they propose to cut through all that complexity.
Right.
What is Particle Network actually doing?
Yeah,
How does their solution work? And, fundamentally, why should you, the listener, care?
exactly. Web3 is growing, which is, great in theory, but that growth has brought literally thousands of chains. And each one often feels like its own little island. So you just want to access an application or use your asset somewhere else. This fragmentation is a huge barrier. It's not just inconvenient. It really degrades the user experience, creates friction everywhere.
Yeah, the report is very clear on this. It identifies the core problem as exactly that, the degrading user experience that stems from this multi-chain fragmentation.
Right.
You need multiple wallets. Bridging assets is a hassle. Having to hold different gas tokens for different networks, it's a constant pain point.
Right. So if you've got some stablecoins on Base, maybe some others on Arbitrum, and you see a trading opportunity or interesting DApp on, I don't know, Solana,
Yeah,
connecting those pieces feels like you're building this complex bridge yourself every single time. It just isolates your liquidity and makes exploring the ecosystem so much harder than it feels like it should be.
definitely.
This is the problem Particle Network is apparently built to solve.
And their proposed solution, which is really central to the whole report, is something called chain abstraction.
Chain abstraction. Okay, that sounds like exactly what we need, making the underlying chain details.
Right.
Well, abstract. How do they actually achieve this?
The core mechanism is something they call universal accounts. Now, these are built on the ERC 4337 smart contract account standard.
Okay, smart contract accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen those enable things like, social logins or maybe gasless transactions before. How does Particle Network use them for chain abstraction specifically?
Well, the key innovation here, according to the report, is using these universal accounts to give users a single chain-agnostic balance. So imagine your assets across different chains aren't stuck in separate chain-specific wallets anymore, but are accessible through one single account interface.
Okay.
The whole idea is you can use assets you hold on any chain without needing to manually bridge them beforehand.
Hold on. So my 5 USDT on Base and my 5 USDT on Arbitrum could just appear as one pool of 10 USDT that I can spend wherever I need it. That sounds, almost too simple compared to how things work today.
That's the promise, yeah. The value proposition is unifying all your on-chain balances into one non-custodial decentralized account. The goal is to make the entire multi-chain world feel like a single, seamless environment. From the user's point of view, anyway.
Like it's all just one system.
Exactly. And the report does highlight that Particle Network has been a core leader driving the research and definition of this whole chain abstraction vertical since like early 2024. They're not just adopting this, they're helping shape it.
That's interesting. So they're positioned as pioneers in this specific approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so if universal accounts are the sort of user interface layer of this chain abstraction, what's happening under the hood, the report mentioned a 3-pillar infrastructure.
Yes, exactly. These 3 components work together to enable that seamless experience you were talking about. First, you have the universal accounts themselves, which we just discussed.
Right.
These accounts aggregate the user's intent and operations, even if they potentially span multiple chains.
Right. So that's your unified balance and interaction point.
Okay.
What's coordinating everything then?
That's the job of the second pillar, the particle chain. This is described as a dedicated layer 1 blockchain. Its specific role is to handle the complex end-to-end coordination and settlement for these cross-chain transactions that are initiated by the universal accounts.
So the universal account captures what you want to do, and the particle chain figures out how to actually make it happen across all the necessary networks.
Precisely. It orchestrates the whole process. And then, to actually execute the cross-chain movement of value that's needed for these transactions, they rely on the third pillar, universal liquidity.
Universal liquidity.
Yeah, this is essentially a network of liquidity providers, LPs, integrated with the particle chain.
And that's where the actual swapping or bridging happens, but it's all handled automatically behind the scenes.
Exactly right. It automates that whole bridging process that users currently have to, figure out and do manually. The report uses a great example, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting to use 5 USDT on Base and 5 USDT on Arbitrum to buy an NFT worth 10 USDT on Solana.
Right. Which today is, yeah, a multi-step nightmare. Manual bridging, swaps.
Correct. With Particle Network, the idea is your universal account would capture this whole thing as a single operation. It aggregates the required steps on Base, Arbitrum, and Solana into just one request signed by the user.
Okay.
The particle chain coordinates this. Then the Universal Liquidity Network steps in to fulfill the cross-chain transfer, effectively making the 10 USDT available on Solana and allowing the NFT purchase to complete, all transparently to the user.
Okay, wow. That example really locks it in. So the universal account is the what I want to do. The particle chain is the how to coordinate it. And universal liquidity is the how to actually make the value appear where it needs to be.
Exactly.
That clears up the interplay between the three pillars.
Yeah, it's a complex orchestration, but designed to feel simple, right? And powering this entire stack, this whole architecture, is Particle Network's native token, PARTI.
The token, okay, how does the PARTI token fit into this? The report gave it quite a foundational role.
It serves several really critical functions within this chain abstraction stack. The first one is its role as the universal gas token.
Universal gas? That sounds pretty significant.
It is. According to the report, PARTI is the native and base token used by universal accounts for gas. So the implication is that users interacting with any dApp on any chain through their universal account, well, their gas fees will ultimately be settled using PARTI, regardless of the native gas token of the chain they're actually interacting with.
Wow, okay. So you might be doing something on, say, Polygon, but your gas fee is abstracted away and paid in PARTI behind the scenes. That truly abstracts away a major point of multi-chain friction for users. It's huge.
That's the mechanism described, yes.
Yeah.
The second function is the universal liquidity token.
Okay.
PARTI is used for settlement and also as an intermediary token for those liquidity providers we mentioned. It allows them to earn fees from the swaps they facilitate, and it gives them a stake in the atomic swaps they help make happen across chains.
So it's kind of part of the economic engine for that liquidity layer that makes those seamless cross-chain movements possible?
Got it. And the third key role?
Staking and governance. Pretty standard, but essential. Holding and staking PARTI allows participation in ecosystem voting. The report notes this determines the network's direction, and it's intended to achieve, native decentralization at the governance level.
Right. Standard but essential utility for a decentralized network.
Yep.
Okay. The report also provided some specific token metrics, accurate as of March 25th, 2025.
Right. Straight from the source material. Token name is PARTI. It's an ERC20. Both the total and the maximum supply are set at 1 billion tokens. So 1 million PARTI.
1 billion, okay. And the initial circulation?
When it was listed on Binance, the initial circulating supply was 233 million. That's 23.3% of the total supply. And the HO dealer airdrop allocation, that was 30 million PARTI, or 3.00% of the total.
Okay. And they also raised funding through private rounds, right? Yes, quite a bit. Over $20 million raised across 4 private rounds. They sold about 24.39% of the supply in those rounds, starting at 3 cents per token in the pre-seed and rising up to 15 cents in the Series A round.
Got it. Okay, so we've covered the tech, the token. Do they have any existing products out there? Or any signs this is actually gaining traction beyond just the report or the white paper?
They do, yeah. The core Universal Accounts infrastructure itself is available, and it's integrated into some third-party dApps already. But their flagship consumer-facing product is called Universal X.
Universal X, what exactly is that?
The report describes it as a chain-agnostic trading platform. So, leveraging those Universal Accounts we talked about, it allows users to trade any on-chain token from over 14 EVM chains in Solana, all using that single unified balance.
Wait, trading from multiple EVM chains in Solana seamlessly from one account balance, that's a really concrete demonstration of the chain abstraction actually working.
Exactly.
And the report had a key metric here, didn't it? Something about volume.
It did, yeah. Since launching its V2 version in late January, Universal X has apparently processed over $430 million in volume.
Wow. $430 million.
Yeah, and the source explicitly attributes this volume to the use of Universal Accounts and their underlying chain abstraction stack. So that's a pretty significant number showing real user activity on the platform.
$430 million in volume is definitely serious traction. It shows this isn't just theoretical. People are actually using it to trade across chains. Okay, so what's the plan moving forward? What does their roadmap look like?
Well, the roadmap shows a pretty clear trajectory, moving from building the core infrastructure to driving wider ecosystem adoption. They list completed milestones back in 2024, things like building the stack, test nets, funding rounds, and the initial Universal X launch.
Right, the groundwork. And the current and near future, starting from Q1 2025.
So Q1 2025 saw the Universal X V2 launch, the one generating that volume, and also the PARTI token launch itself. Looking ahead to Q2 2025, they plan to launch Universal X V3, which should add more advanced trading features, like limit orders.
Okay, improving their own app.
Right, but crucially, Q2 also marks the kickoff of strategic collaborations with Tier 1D apps. The goal is to start integrating universal accounts directly into other major applications.
Ah, okay, so the focus shifts from just their own product to enabling other developers and platforms.
Exactly. Then Q3 2025 is when the Universal Account SDKs, the software development kits, are planned to become available to a select group of third-party dApps. The first partners are expected to go live across various sectors. They mentioned DeFi, AI, trading, stablecoins.
A diverse set.
Yeah. And Q4 2025 involves bringing on a second cohort of integrations and really pushing hard on developer marketing.
And what's the big picture goal here, the end game on the roadmap?
That's Q1 2026. The roadmap targets universal accounts becoming fully permissionless, so any dApp or any chain can integrate them without needing special permission.
Wow, okay, that's the point where this could potentially become truly widespread infrastructure, like a base layer for interaction. It shows a clear scaling plan. Build it, prove it works with their own product, integrate with key partners, and then open it up to the entire ecosystem.
It's definitely an ambitious timeline, but it maps out a path for chain abstraction to move from being a novel concept to potentially a pervasive technology across Web3. And they've already lined up some significant collaborations mentioned in the report, even before that permissionless stage.
Okay, let's maybe run through some of those key partnerships mentioned. Who are they working with?
Well, they mentioned working with Ava Labs, for example, deploying the particle chain within the Avalanche ecosystem. The idea is to connect its various L1s using universal accounts. They also integrate Li-Fi to power swap quotes within Universal X, leveraging existing swap routing tech rather than reinventing the wheel there.
Right, using best-in-class components where it makes sense.
Lauren? Seems like it. Everclear is noted as driving the rebalancing needed for their Universal Liquidity network. Camp, which is another Layer 1 project, is planning to use universal accounts to simplify onboarding for its users, basically removing bridging hurdles from day one.
Interesting use case there. And support from major existing chains.
Yeah, BNB Chain apparently has native support for Particle's approach, aiming to drive chain abstraction within its, very large ecosystem. They're also working with the data availability layer, Avail, for some future infrastructure needs.
Okay. And the range of blockchains initially supported by Universal X is pretty broad then, not just EVM.
Very broad. The report lists Arbitrum, Base, Manta, Linea, Barachain, Sonic, Polygon, Mode, and Conflux. That's a lot of EVM diversity, but also, importantly, Solana.
Solana too, okay.
Yeah, so that's a diverse group across different virtual machines and architectures, which indicates they're aiming for broad applicability.
It definitely suggests they're building for a genuinely multi-chain future, not just focused on one corner of the ecosystem. Good. Finally, the report just lists their community channels, X, formerly Twitter, their blog, and Discord. Pretty standard places to follow along.
Right, the usual suspects.
Okay, well that was quite the deep dive into the report on Particle Network. I think if you're trying to navigate Web3 today without getting constantly lost in this chain-switching, wallet-juggling nightmare, this is definitely relevant.
Absolutely. The core takeaway here is that Particle Network is tackling this fragmentation problem head-on with their concept of chain abstraction. Their whole approach uses those universal accounts to give you that single, unified balance across chains. It's all orchestrated by the particle chain and powered by universal liquidity, with the PARTI token fueling the entire system.
And we saw some concrete signs of this actually working. The universal accounts designed to pool balances, their Universal X platform showing over $430 EMRs in cross-chain trading volume already, the detailed token metrics, and that clear roadmap showing a path from proving the concept to potentially widespread adoption across the whole ecosystem.
Understanding projects like this, I think, is vital because it shows how the industry is actively trying to address what might be the biggest hurdle to mass adoption usability. It really points towards a future where the underlying chain might become more of a background detail, letting you just focus purely on what you want to do with your assets and applications.
Which, that would be a fundamental shift in how we interact with Web3, a huge shift.
It certainly would. And, that raises an interesting final question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. If universal accounts do become permissionless for any dApp or chain to integrate by Q1 2026, like they plan, And if this model really became the standard way users interact with the decentralized web, what new possibilities for entirely novel applications emerge when that whole "which chain am I on" question just vanishes? And on the flip side, what potential new complexities or maybe hidden trade-offs might arise from abstracting away those underlying chain realities so completely?
Definitely a lot to think about regarding the future of Web3 usability and what that might look like.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.